Good day, everyone. This is Luke To Infinity. I am your host, Luke, and joining me is everyone's favorite sound guy from the Luke and Me Show, Harry. We have a lot of stuff to go over in this episode, and we're going to have some callers calling in as well. It is episode 11, and if you enjoy what you are listening to here on Luke To Infinity, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. But before we get started, I would like everyone to please rise for the pledge to our flag.
I pledge allegiance to the United States of America, one nation, indivisible, under God, for real.
Thank you, Mr. Biden, for leading us once again in our pledge to our flag. So let's start off by saying that Luke to Infinity was right again. All of the objections to the certification for the general election led to nothing. Luke to Infinity was the first to predict it, and we got it right. But, on a more serious note, let's talk about the riots. And yes, I'll call them riots, because as soon as there is violence that starts in a protest, it becomes a riot. But let's compare, okay, this riot to the BLM riots back in June and July, okay, of 2020. Ooh, there's that word again, 2020, that year. Deaths at this riot, 4. Total deaths from the BLM riots, somewhere range between 30 and 40 people, depending where you look. Arrests at this riot, 52. Total arrests from the BLM riots, and still climbing, by the way, 15,000. Okay, no buildings were burned. The local Wendy's is still okay in D.C. But is all of this acceptable? The answer is no, of course not. Violence is not acceptable. Rioting is not acceptable. Now, you might be saying that there were peaceful protesters at the BLM riots. Well, the difference between this riot and the BLM riots is that the peaceful protesters here are saying that this violence was not acceptable. And the Republicans in Congress are also saying that this violence was not acceptable. They were saying the same thing about the BLM riots. The violence then was not acceptable. The peaceful protesters at the BLM riots, if there were any there, if you claim that there were peaceful protesters at the BLM riots, they did not call out the violence. They did not condemn it. None of this was acceptable. Okay, everything was peaceful until Antifa showed up, and I'll talk about that a little later. Even after the riot cleared, the stupid debating inside the Capitol, even that wasn't acceptable. For one, every time Congress meets, it's paid for by the American people through taxes. So by keeping these fools at the Capitol for this long, it's just yours and my tax money being flushed down the crapper, clogging it, clogging this crapper, and then destroying the plumbing. It's a waste of time and money to keep these fools in their meeting a second longer than they actually have to be there. These idiots don't do their job anyway. There are some that are okay, but the majority of them, done. These idiots don't do their job. Let them at least pretend to meet and pretend to work so that we aren't wasting our time and money. Now, the idiots that broke into the Capitol building and vandalized the offices and vandalized desks and everything, and hallways and everything, those offices and desks don't belong to the people that actually sit at them. They belong to the American people. Nancy Pelosi, a person that I do not agree with at all, she doesn't own the desk that she sits at. I do. You do. We, the American people, do. That building and everything inside of it was bought and paid for by you and me and every American taxpayer out there. So get out of the Capitol building, protesters. Get out. Stop wasting my time and my money. Secondly, When it really comes down to it, none of this should have happened in the first place. The only people to blame for this is our dumb elected officials and the spineless Supreme Court for not issuing an investigation of the voting fraud. This all could have been avoided. At the very least, have a simple investigation. Because, yes, there was fraud. There was voting fraud. Everyone knows it. Even the Secretary of State and the Governor of Georgia admitted that 2 dead people voted in the general election there. Now, I know you're probably saying, well, that's not not enough to overturn the general election, but that alone is proof of fraud. It doesn't make it acceptable. So at least have an investigation to make sure nothing was overlooked. It's that simple. If the left is so confident that there was no fraud and nothing will be found, then have a small and simple, easy process investigation. A simple audit would have prevented all of this. However, though, I will say, an investigation or audit, whatever you want to call it, would be a double-edged sword. Maybe this was foreseen as a no-win scenario, and what I mean by that is if the courts and state governments decided to do an investigation and then actually found something, there would have been outrage from the left. So there still would have been riots and looting and people dying, maybe more than 4. I mean, just look at the rioting and looting from the BLM movements back in the summer. So maybe by deciding to do nothing, our elected officials were just choosing the lesser of 2 evils. Maybe. I don't know. We never know. We never know without an investigation into fraud. I'll tell you what, though. The hypocrisy of the left is almost comical at this point. They say, we will not put up with lawlessness. Really? Portland is still an autonomous zone. I'm talking to the left. If you really aren't going to put up with lawlessness, then prove it. Go retake Portland, Oregon. Get those idiots that are occupying. Get them out of there. And another thing that I heard today, and it was from Florida Representative Matt Gaetz, and I couldn't have said it better myself, but he said, I guess the left's defund the police narrative isn't working now, is it? Still, I mentioned this earlier, everything was peaceful until Antifa showed up. And if you don't know what they are, I'll tell you what, they are against any form of government. They want complete lawlessness, chaos, no laws at all. They don't want any laws. The difference with Antifa showing up at this riot and showing up at the BLM riots is that BLM supports Antifa. And it says so on their stupid webpage. The real Trump supporters do not support Antifa. The dumbest argument that I've been hearing on social media, and it's out there, is that there would have been a lot more deaths if these rioters were a different color, of a darker skin. Really? That's the most racist statement I think I've ever heard. Have they heard of Portland, Oregon? I just mentioned it. Come on. They talk as if the only people there in Washington, D.C. rioting, they talk as if the only people there were white. That's a joke. Everyone, there was multiple of variety of races in Washington, D.C. protesting. What a joke. The biggest reason, and I have an answer for that dumb comment, the biggest reason why less people died here at Washington, D.C. was because the protests did not start off as violent. They started off peacefully. The BLM riots were violent from the very start. They flat out said they were going to be violent from the start, and most of the deaths were caused among themselves, or were actual police officers that were killed defending the innocent. I gotta go back to it. Look at Portland. Not even a week ago, there was another BLM protest with buildings being burned, and riots, and looting. There were more BLM riots when this Washington, D.C. riot was happening. But you didn't hear a peep from the media about that. Portland, Oregon is still occupied by Antifa. The riot at the Capitol is it's done. It's over. It's a once and done thing. These people showed up peacefully, and Trump told them to stay peaceful. So the argument that these morons out there on social media that are saying, and social media is ridiculous, but the dumb points that they're putting out saying that Trump incited this violence, stop. Just stop, please. Give me a physical break. Trump posted a video on Facebook and Twitter, and he was saying to keep the peace, to respect the folks in blue, to listen to the security, and to stay safe. The guy tells these people to calm down, keep the peace, and the social media giants suspend indefinitely his accounts. Oh, we can't have Trump calling for peace. Quick, suspend his accounts. Take him down. And to all the dumb videos that you're seeing from so-called Trump supporters, and you'll see these people, and they're like, their faces are all maced up, and their eyes are bloodshot, and their water's coming down their face because they're rinsing their eyes out because they were maced and everything. But you'll see these dumb videos, and you'll see these people saying, "Oh, it's a revolution." These aren't real Trump supporters. This is Antifa. And if you disagree, if you truly believe that these are actual Trump supporters calling for a revolution, if you are truly outraged at these people because you think they are calling for violence and you just want peace, then I have a question for you. Were you this outraged back in June and July during the BLM riots? If you were a person cheering on the BLM riots, then you have no say in any of this. You are the problem. Violence like this and the violence from the BLM riots is wrong and needs to be condemned by everyone. Alright, so we're going to go to the phones now, and we have our special guest caller. It's me from the Luke and Me Show. Me!
Luke!
Yes, me!
Hi!
Me, what's going on?
Well, I just got back from Colorado.
Colorado?
No, I wasn't in Colorado. I don't know why I just said that.
Did you just get back from D.C.?
No, I was the furthest possible you can be from D.C. I was in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Nice. So,
but I was watching live.
Okay. So we were talking about what happened at the D.C. riots, and I'm gonna call them riots because any protest that has violence is a riot. Okay.
I just call any protest a riot now. I'm just
that's true. Nowadays, any protest is a riot with all the violence you have. But we were also talking about how the left reacted and the hypocrisy coming from the left. Now that they're all up in arms, but yet back in June and July during the BLM protests, you didn't hear a peep out of them.
Yeah, that was disgusting. Did you see what the heck is it? Chuck Schumer.
Yeah.
Did you see his speech in the Senate then after the riots were over?
I saw some highlights of it. I know that he said that it's the worst day since December. Pearl Harbor. Yeah.
I was banging my head on the wall. I was banging my head. I made a dent in the wall and my head. That was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. A day that will live in infamy. Pearl Harbor. We had 9/11.
Yeah.
2001.
Well, the guy's like 95 years old, so he probably forgot about that.
Oh my gosh. It's like you didn't call 9/11 a day that will live in infamy. Nope, what we're going to call January 6th. That was ridiculous. Okay, so can I tell you what I saw and what I initially thought?
Go right ahead. This is why we have the phone lines open.
Okay, so I was watching live. Okay, I was watching on C-SPAN. So the House and Senate just split apart because they were going to do they opposed the Arizona electors. So then they split from the joint session. Right. And then the Senate was doing their debates and the House was doing their debates. So I was watching the House debates.
Yeah.
And it was the one representative from Arizona, and he was up talking.
Okay.
And At first, I thought it was somebody, like another representative or something, was yelling at him. Because you heard this guy like, what's going on? And the guy even asked, he's like, can I have order in the house? And the speaker said, okay, we're gonna break for a recess. And I think that's when Nancy Pelosi got out of there, because then it was the House Minority Leader leading.
Right.
They broke for a little bit of a recess, but then it came back. The representative from Arizona finished his words, and then the speaker's like, okay, and we're going to break for a recess. But then the camera cut on C-SPAN. It cut from the live feed in the House to the hallway that connects the House and the Senate.
Right.
Like Continence Hallway or whatever the heck it's called.
Yeah.
Might as well be called Incontinence Hallway. So here it showed a roped-off walkway. Like you would see in like a museum, like those thick ropes and those metal posts that hold the ropes.
Yeah. And
people coming in, I guess they were Trump supporters, whatever, waving their flags, walking in this roped-off walkway, in an orderly line.
Right.
Like a mob. A mob wouldn't be following a roped-off path.
That's exactly right.
Everywhere.
I think I saw a picture of this.
Yes. But in amongst the people, there were security guards, there were policemen, and it looked like the police and security were joining the people, like leading them or guiding them into the House chamber. That's what it looked like to me, and I'm like, look at this. I'm like, this is crazy. They let the people in.
Right. They were probably...
Like they let them in.
Well, they were probably... I mean, if they did leave them in, the protesters in, then at this time, okay, then these protesters would have been peaceful at this time. And if the police and security guards were letting them in, they were probably guiding them to like a safe location or a location out of the way that wouldn't get involved, like you wouldn't be in any important hallway or anything like that, and it would just be like where a neutral place to stand would be.
Maybe that's what was happening, but there was a roped-off path. It looked like people were meant to be walking down this path into the House chamber.
It's possible.
And then C-SPAN then cut that live feed, and they just showed a live feed of outside of the building where people were standing on the steps and everything, and they cut to the one anchor lady, and she's like, oh my goodness, look at all this. People are burning things down. They broke down the wall. Everyone's storming in. They're shooting each other. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, I didn't see any of that happening.
Well, yeah, that's the left.
People just walking in a roped-off path, being led in by the cops.
Right, yeah, and we mentioned earlier, we were talking about, that everything was basically peaceful and going smoothly until Antifa showed up. And it's really it's really easy to pick out these Antifa people, because regular average regular average everyday normal American who is a Trump supporter doesn't come to a protest in SWAT gear, helmets, goggles,
right,
and freaking body armor.
A lot of the Trump supporters came from, there was like 3 or 4 different events going around at the same time.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed to have backpacks.
Right.
A lot of the people that ended up showing, because there were violent people then inside the Capitol building, it didn't look like that from the start. But they all had backpacks, they all had everything else. It was like, where'd these people come from?
Yeah, there was clearly 2 sets of people at this protest or riot, whatever you want to call it. But, I mean, what could have been a nice, orderly, easy protest turned into a riot, because there is
proof even that there was Antifa members there.
Well, yeah, and
I think it's XR Vision.
Yeah.
They're a facial recognition company.
Right.
Who identified... This morning it was just 2, but I think they've identified, more than that by now. Right.
But and the FBI...
He explained away, they're like, no, they weren't really people.
Right, yeah,
They're
right.
Left defense.
The FBI is doing an investigation, and I was listening to Trey Gowdy earlier, and he was saying that, this is going to be an open and shut case for most of these people that broke in and vandalized and destroyed the inside of the Capitol building. It's going to be open and shut case. They're going to be able to locate them. The FBI is going to be able to identify them. Then you'll be able to you'll find out that these people were not Trump supporters. They were just masquerading, and they were Antifa people. You'll find that out.
The lady that was shot and was killed, she was a Trump supporter. She was she did 4 tours in the U.S. Air Force, but there was some weirdness going on with that. Did you see the video of her? She was trying to get into a window that many other people had already gotten through because they were letting them in.
Yeah.
And then the one security, it showed inside of because it was a window that led into the House chamber, and this was the picture of the guys pointing their guns through the door, basically.
I saw that picture,
One of them guys that shot her. If you watch that video, on her side, right aside of her, is a police officer that has a gun, and he's pointing it back in to the window. He's pointing it at the people that just shot her. It was... It didn't make sense. There was security on both sides of the door, and the one security shot her through the door at the other security. It was weird.
Yeah, I honestly think that the guy that inside, I think he just panicked. I think he panicked and pulled the trigger. And maybe who knows, maybe he wasn't trying to specifically aim it at a person. Maybe he was just trying to shoot a couple scares off, like a scare shot off, and try to dissipate the crowd.
Shoot an air shot with live ammunition.
Yeah, you don't know, and no one really knows until an investigation comes out about this.
Preschool. One last thing
Go
I
ahead.
want to say is there was reports where, D.C. police was actually guiding Antifa buses that had the Antifa logo spray painted on the outside of them. They were guiding them to the Capitol building. This is on video, but then there's other video of outside of the Capitol, right when they were breaking in the one window to get in. You can hear a lady chanting, "Antifa, Antifa, Antifa."
Yeah.
She was literally chanting Antifa.
Yeah, I think I saw that. And honestly, it's going to come down to the FBI putting a full investigation into this, and hopefully the FBI actually does an investigation.
They won't.
Then we'll never know. We'll never really know who was behind.
We will never know. It's been blamed on Trump supporters. History will write it in the history. They're already writing history books on it. Trump supporters.
Yeah.
And 40 years from now, our grandchildren, whoever, will be sitting in their social studies class. Okay, kids, take out your books and turn to page 18.
Well, you know what? You know what? You know what, though? You know what, though? If that happens, then in those same history books, on a couple pages before this, there better be all kinds of reports of the Black Lives Matter movement and riots and killings during those.
No, they'll be... Oh, there was a freedom movement in summer of 2020.
Right, yeah, that's ridiculous.
They won't even talk about the coronavirus. That'll be lost to history.
Oh, yeah, you beat me to the punch there. I was just going to say at the end of the show, notice how the media basically put COVID-19 in the back seat. It's just amazing how ridiculous COVID-19 was. That wasn't a scare. You've got to be kidding me. If COVID-19 was really important and really this much of a deadly virus and a big scare, then a little protest or riot like this, it wouldn't have even mattered.
COVID-19, this pandemic that we're currently living in, will be just as well known as the Spanish influenza pandemic was now
Gotcha.
in 1918.
Okay.
And nobody even knows about Spanish influenza pandemic in 1918.
No.
No one knows anything about it. I only learned about it because of this pandemic.
Yep, that's exactly right. Well, we're gonna get to some more callers there, me.
Okay.
So thanks for calling in, and please keep spreading the word about Luke to Infinity. And if you haven't liked and subscribed, I'm pretty sure you have already. Luke. But please do that.
I will, Luke, and we gotta do me versus the world again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have to do that.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Yep. All right, so we're going to go to a second caller. We have a caller on the line named Roy. Roy, how are you, Roy?
Hello, Luke. It's been ridiculous.
It's been ridiculous, yes. Yes, putting it in simplest terms. That is exactly right. It is definitely ridiculous.
Luke, I think that COVID, the predominant symptom of COVID-19 is insanity, and everyone got it. And you know what, Luke? This is a good example of the original of our government, which was supposed to be small, limited government.
Yeah.
The government should not have this much power and influence over people.
You're exactly right.
Just because the new president comes in shouldn't cause a riot.
Yeah.
The president should not have this much power to change things. So it doesn't really matter who the president is, because our country is not supposed to be run by one king-like leader.
That's a really good point, Roy. And earlier in the show, we were talking about how this riot, and I'm going to call it a riot because any protest with violence is a riot. And honestly, protests nowadays they're just riots anyway. So this riot was basically a big, giant waste of time and taxpayer money.
Yep.
These people that broke into the Capitol, and it's rumored that a lot of them were Antifa people. I mean, you have to, if you're a real Trump supporter, you have to condemn this nonsense. And who do these people think they are, breaking into a building where basically everything inside this building, everything inside there, was bought and paid for by me and you, Roy.
Yes.
The desk of Nancy Pelosi. She doesn't own that. I do. You do.
Yeah.
The offices that these people sit and pretend to work. The very stink mark in their chair that they sit in. I own it. You own it. We have paid for it. And these idiots go in and just destroy everything that I bought.
Yes, and that's another thing. I don't understand where all the security was. I mean,
they let them in.
They knew that this was going to happen. There should have been more security, first of all. And I know it's sad that one lady got shot and killed, but I don't understand what other outcome did they think was going to happen?
Right.
I don't like Nancy Pelosi at all. I don't agree with anything she says.
Me too.
Whenever she speaks, it's like a fly that buzzes around my head, and I keep smacking it away.
Yep, that's exactly what I do.
But if I were a Secret Service agent and that moron that was sitting there with his boot up on the desk, as soon as he popped his head around the corner, I would have popped a bullet in his head.
Well, I mean, there definitely should have been more stricter actions taken against these idiots that came in and destroyed the Capitol building. And I don't know why security was basically told to just let them go. I mean, it's almost like they were told to let them go for a reason, so that these people could get away doing this nonsense, masquerading as Trump supporters, so that they could give a bad name to all Trump supporters. Because that's the big thing going around right now, is that if you're a Trump supporter, this was you. And this is what you stand for. You stand for chaos and lawlessness. And that's just not right.
No, that's nonsense. That's actually, by saying that, you're actually causing exactly what happened.
Yes.
That's why people were there protesting, because we've been called racist and all this stuff, and we're not.
Right.
And people just got pissed, and somebody incited it, and everybody went with it. But yeah, there should have been more security, and I didn't vote for Trump the first time.
Neither did I.
I voted for him this time just because Joe Biden is mental.
Yeah.
And he has dementia.
Yeah.
But no, I wouldn't consider myself a Trump supporter. I would consider myself a United States of America supporter.
Yep.
And the Constitution.
Yep.
And that is Joe Biden. I don't know if you saw it. He just recently did a speech, and he mentioned we have 3 equal branches of government and have all these constitution and laws. Okay, buddy, you're going to be in 12 days. Let's see how much you believe in the Constitution. I'll give you a day, but the minute that you go and take away the Second Amendment, you're done. You lost. You lost all my support already.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, I mean, maybe he is a sort of moderate that the Democrats think that he is, and maybe he's just being used. And there was a caller really early in this season of Luke to Infinity that said, he said that Joe Biden's basically a puppet. But yeah, maybe Joe Biden is actually a puppet, and maybe he when he takes office, he'll only be in office for, I don't know, a couple months, and then he'll get some disease and have to resign.
I think I heard that somewhere.
Yeah, the Luke to Infinity show put that on.
Yeah.
Well,
anyway, it's ridiculous, Luke. This mob was absolutely ridiculous, and there should have been more security, riot police. They should have been stopped. They should have been beaten before they could get in the doors. And I don't what they expected during the doors other than being shot. But it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I did mention earlier in the show that the biggest, just stupidest comment that's being thrown around on social media out there right now is that if these protesters, I call them rioters, if they were of a darker skin color, there would have been more of them shot and killed. And I think that that's the biggest racist comment that anyone could ever speak. It's almost like these people, and I said it earlier, it's almost like those people who are saying that believe that the only people that were protesting there or rioting there were white people. You've got to be joking me. There was people of every skin color there, and no one was being singled out because of their skin color. So I think that's just ridiculous nonsense being spewed.
That is ridiculous nonsense. And can anybody spell autonomous zone? That I think is still occupying one of the cities.
We were talking about that too. It's Portland, Oregon, and there was a riot last night, and not even a week ago there were more buildings being burnt down, but yet the mayor doesn't want to do anything.
And they're being treated horribly and brutalized by police, even though they've occupied a city.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Well, the police were told to get out of there, so figure that one out.
I can't figure it out, Luke.
Yeah.
I'm ready to move to Libya or whatever. At least I know. At least I know what to expect if I'm in Libya.
Right. Yeah. You step out of line, you get your ear chopped off.
Yes.
Well,
all right, Luke. That's it.
Yep. Thanks for calling in, Roy. And make sure, if you haven't already, to like and subscribe to Luke to Infinity, and keep spreading the word, Roy.
You will.
All right. Thank you. Now, I will say one thing about all of this. The media finally put COVID-19 in the back seat. Isn't that amazing? Well, we're just going to wrap this up. This was an emergency Luke to Infinity episode. Join us next time on Luke to Infinity, and hopefully we can get some more "What did Joe say?" clips to play. And so anyway, I am Luke. That guy over there is Harry. Please stay safe and stay calm. Thanks for tuning in, and make sure that you like and subscribe if you like what you hear, and please spread the word. Join us next time as we dive deeper and deeper into infinity.